they could have already sealed something with a specific team. It was like, don't get hurt.
And then some of them, because that's the same thing we saw with Clowney a couple of years ago. A lot of people felt like, oh, he ain't playing as hard as he was the first couple of seasons, because you don't want to risk and get hurt and then miss your opportunity to go to the draft. But I mean, you're playing for Ohio State every year. They want to play for that championship, so your level of play needs to be there. So hopefully they can get things rectified there with him. But we did see the upset. Ohio State going down their first loss of the season at home in 31-16 fashion to the Oklahoma Sooners. So that's going to drop Ohio State down. We'll see as we get into the rankings later on where they end up in the top 10 this week.
Okay.
So next game where I was right, and I think, did you pick Clemson as well? I thought you picked Clemson as well last week to beat Auburn. They played number 13 Auburn. It was a low-scoring game, a defensive battle. Final score turned up to be 14-6. To me, I call this a defensive power struggle. A limited offense in this matchup. But one thing about Clemson, they shut out Auburn in the second half. So Auburn got all 6 of their points, the 2 field goals in the first half. And they didn't get any points in the second half. But I want to give a shout-out to the Clemson defense. 11 sacks in that game on Auburn's quarterback. Jesse Austin for Clemson had 4 of the 11 sacks in that game. So that was a huge defensive game for Clemson.
Okay. As far as I'm mistaken, too, man, Auburn's not like a run over team.
They're not. They're
a pretty good team. So for them to be so dominant defensively, that which is a good thing, because I guess I'm thinking for most people, they kind of expected Clemson to kind of go down a little bit, losing Deshaun Watson. But as I saw week 1, their backup quarterback, I forgot his name, he's already playing, filling in the shoes quite well, and then to show that Clemson's defense is just as dominant, if not getting better. So that also, that kind of shows that they're definitely thinking about regaining and retaining their title this year.
So they're off to a 2-0 start.
Definitely.
The defending champions are off to a good start this season. So the next game we looked at was the Georgia-Notre Dame game. Georgia ranked number 15th at the time, took on number 24 Notre Dame. This was a really good game. I was kind of flipping back and forth between this game and the Ohio State game just to try to see what was going on. All the way through it was close. Georgia wins their first trip to South Bend. Georgia is favored to win the SEC East. They had a late field goal there at the end to win it, and they were able to cause a last drive turnover by Notre Dame to hold on for that win. So they are 2-0 on the season. Notre Dame loses their first game of the season. And after the game, I noticed, I don't know if any of you had a chance to see Brian Kelly's post-game conference after the game. They were asking, a lady reporter asked him about how he's been losing a lot of these one-point games. I think last year they had 6 or 7 one-point losses last year, and another one to kind of open up the season here. And he took real offense to what she was saying. Like, he got really testy with her because of the loss, and he was just like, she was just asking him, is it going to be more of the same? And he really kind of got heated with her. So you got to kind of keep an eye on Notre Dame to see how that situation turns out. I mean, he has done well there, but, I mean, this is one of the more historic college football programs in college football, and for him they're kind of mediocre at this point to not be on the mainstream with everyone else. Notre Dame football is kind of down as opposed to what we remember from the glory days.
Right.
So, but Georgia did get that win. SEC Team Georgia goes in and wins.
And also, I was just checking out just now, their quarterback Jake Fromm is his first start as a freshman quarterback. So, and for him to pull out 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, he had a pretty good game to say that, he held his composure to pull out, like you said, pull out a win against them.
Yeah, so that was a big win for Notre Dame. Big win for Georgia over Notre Dame. Another one where I was wrong, just for us being from the Carolinas here, I picked Missouri over South Carolina, but the Gamecocks actually came out, played well, won that game 31-13. They looked really good. I'm still not big on them, to be honest with you. But they did get the win, especially when they get deep into the SEC schedule. I think that's when we'll start to see things come down to earth for South Carolina. They do have Georgia favored to win the SEC East. They still have to play Florida and some other tough teams over that way. But the Gamecocks are 2-0 right now. I can't argue against that, so they're off to a pretty good start. So I was wrong with that pick. And then it came down to Stanford versus USC. I was wrong with this pick as well, although I have USC in my college football playoff replacing Florida State. I thought they would lose this game to Stanford given the fact how well Stanford played in week 1.
Right.
But Sam Darnold really came out and played some really good football. He's one of the top Heisman prospects right now. He went 21 of 26 for 316 yards, 4 touchdowns in that game. And what USC pretty much did in this game was they kept Stanford playing from behind. So they looked a whole lot better than what they looked last week when they played against Western Michigan. They won the game 42-24. That was a Pac-12 matchup, so that was a division win for the Trojans. So a huge win for them as they move to 2-0 on the season.
Definitely.
Most definitely a big win for them. Also, just some other performances out there. Michigan's quarterback, Spates, had a huge game as well. He threw over 402 yards, 3 touchdowns in that game, although he did have 2 interceptions. But to see a 400-yard passing performance in college football is pretty good as well. And you have some stats for Lamar Jackson from Louisville, right?
Definitely. I just realized over the weekend he became the second player in history, FBS history, to have back-to-back games of 300 passing yards and 100-plus rushing yards, with him having 6 touchdowns and 525 total yards in their win against UNC.
I mean, Lamar Jackson, man. And the thing is, a lot of people, I mean, we know we won the Heisman last year, but Lamar Jackson, they're not really giving him a lot of love this year. No. I know Sam Darnold from USC. We got Baker Mayfield in the conversation and some other players out there. But, I mean, Lamar Jackson is still the truth to me, man. He's doing, even though he may not be playing the same level of competition as some of these other quarterbacks. Right. But, I mean, to go out there, you still got to go out there and make plays and play.
Still got to win.
You still got to win, and he's doing some incredible stuff, man.
Definitely.
So, as we recap that, so now we're going to get into the top 10 of going into week 3. We'll start from the bottom up. And then we'll get into some of our big matchups of this week in college football. So right now at number 10 this week, Wisconsin is at number 10 at 2-0. They did remain undefeated. They were number 9 last week. So they did drop a spot, but they're still in the top 10 representing the Big Ten Conference. Number 9 this week, Oklahoma State is at 2-0 on the season. We're going to revisit a huge thing that happened in their game, but they are 2-0 on the season at number 9. Ohio State is now currently your number 8 team in the polls. They dropped 6 spots after that loss to the Oklahoma Sooners, so they're still in good position. With that one loss, they are 1-1 on the season. So as again, I think they have to win it all the way out, and they still have some tough games coming up against Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, some of these other top tier teams. So it could be tough, an uphill battle for them. Speaking of Michigan, they're 2-0 on the season at number 7 this week. So they're climbing up the ranks each week. We got Washington, the Washington Huskies at 2-0 on the season, representing the Pac-12 Conference. Number 5, Penn State dropped a spot from 4 to 5, but they are 2-0 after their win over Pitt this week. The USC Trojans moved up from 6 to number 4. They are 2-0 on the season with their win over number 14 Stanford. A huge performance by Sam Darnold, and so the Trojans are in the top 4. The defending champs remained at number 3, Clemson 2-0 after their win over Auburn after that strong defensive performance with 11 sacks in that game versus Auburn. The defending champs 2-0 on the year. Oklahoma jumped up from 5 to number 2 after that win over after that win over Ohio State. All these O's, man. So they are 2-0 on the season. I kind of figured they would push them over USC and Clemson after that big win over Ohio State. Again, Baker Mayfield's doing some great things right now with the Sooners and the whole controversy with sticking that flag in the middle of Ohio State's field. The young head coach, winning that big game on the road there. So they're number 2. And then number 1, as always, Big Bad Bama.
Big Bad Bama.
2-0 on the season. So that rounds out your top 10 for college football this week. And we can get into some top matchups for week 3 going forward. Alabama, I think, has an easy test this week. They're going to be facing Colorado State. Oklahoma at number 2 is going to be facing Tulane this week. That should be another victory for them. We got Michigan at number 7 is going to be taking on Army. For the Carolinas here, South Carolina Gamecocks will be taking on Kentucky. Supposed to be a blackout at Williams-Brice Stadium, so everybody's going to be in all black there, so we'll see how that turns out for that SEC showdown. Speaking of the SEC, also another showdown between conference rivals. We got the Tennessee Volunteers at number 23 taking on number 24 Florida. The Gators. After their first loss of the year a couple of weeks ago to Michigan, hopefully they can get in the win column taking on Tennessee. And then we got the defending national champions, the marquee matchup of the weekend, Clemson taking on number 14 Louisville. Lamar Jackson going up against that Clemson defense. That should be an epic showdown this weekend. What do you think about that, CJ?
If anything else, man, because what I'm gonna get to in a minute is talking about the Heisman ranking, and currently right now Lamar Jackson is number 2, even though, like I said, I talked about his record-breaking already performance in 2 games. If he doesn't get pushed, if he wins this game against Clemson, like I said, showing how dominant Clemson defense is, if he doesn't get at number 1 after this week, I mean, it's definitely some injustice going on in the polls. But I really hope to watch this game, to see this game, go out. I think this is going to be actually a great game if the Clemson defense really performs and Lamar Jackson performs as well. I don't know how dominant Louisville's defense is going to hold up, though. So if anything, the deal breaker is going to be in Louisville's defense. That can actually make or break and make this game either a close game or a runaway game for Clemson. Because Clemson is going to give Lamar Jackson a hard time. That's going to happen. It just shows whether his ability to perform against it and what their defense can do to maintain it.
You're right. I think it's going to be kind of a reality check for him in this game. He'll still do some nice stuff offensively. They'll still score points. But my thing is, if they can get an early lead, how will Clemson respond? Because we don't have Deshaun Watson anymore, so this will show us what their quarterback is made of, facing a deficit. And then Louisville's at home this time. Okay. And that's a fast track that they play on. They play on artificial turf, so it's like the differences of the turfs really make a difference sometimes versus playing on natural grass versus a AstroTurf type thing. So the players become a lot faster on that turf because the cleats don't have to worry about getting dug down in the ground and stuff slipping and falling. So, I think Louisville could be brewing a chance to get an upset here. And I hate to pick against Clemson, but I feel like if they're going to lose any game this season, it would be this one. I think Louisville didn't really get a lot of respect because they did have a rough end to the season last year. But they're still, to me, as long as they have Lamar Jackson, you got to take these guys serious. Definitely. Because, he's a human highlight reel. I was looking at some of the highlights from that North Carolina game, and I'm just like, is North Carolina even trying? Like, they would be like right there, missing tackles, but that's just, I don't know if it's more bad execution on their part, or that's just how athletic this guy is to make you look that bad.
I think it's a healthy median because I don't really see UNC as a
No, I don't see that.
Exactly. So, of course I can definitely see there's some bad tackling going on, even though I didn't watch his performance. But like I said, I mean, he was last year's Heisman, so it's definitely due to his athleticism and ability